Welcome to Cracked, the podcast, the program that slays the dragons of mental health by stripping away the shame, embarrassment, fear, and stigma. Because mental health isn't something that affects just some of us, it applies to all of us. Here to shine a new light on areas of mental health that often go unvisited are your hosts, Rebecca Schaper and Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello and welcome to Crack the Podcast, Slaying the Dragons of Mental Health, with me, Sandie Sedgbeer.
And me, Rebecca Schaper.
If there's one thing we all have in common, it's that each of us will hit rock bottom at some point in our lives, and neither wealth, position or power can safeguard us from that. The question is, how do you pick yourself up and go on? How do you recover from rape and violence as a child? How do you cope with being a mother at 16 when you can barely take care of yourself? How do you survive physical abuse in a marriage, regular beatings, suicide attempts, months in a mental home, having to bring up children as a welfare mum, or nurse a beloved daughter dying from colon cancer? Any one of these traumas would bring most people to their knees, crying, how can I recover from this blow? How do I pick myself up? Where do I find the strength and the will to go on? This week, we're honoured to be joined by someone who can give us the answers to those questions, because she's not only lived through them all, but has gone on to show others how to rise up from rock bottom, recover from trauma, and fix their lives. Please welcome legendary New Thought spiritual teacher, life coach, inspirational speaker, best-selling author of dozens of popular self-help books, and much-loved host and executive producer of the award-winning TV show, Iyanla, Fix My Life on Oprah Winfrey's own network. Iyanla, we're delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you. How are you? Good morning.
We're good, thank you.
In that beautiful description, you forgot to say the human being, because that's what really gives all of us power, the fact that
yes,
we're human imbued by spirit. But thank you. I was wondering,
yes,
who's she talking about? Who is
Iyanla,
Yes.
there are no words to describe the trauma you suffered in your life, the unspeakable violence and abuse inflicted upon you, the desperation and pain of survival, of struggling to raise and protect your children alone, while still unhealed yourself, and yet, against all odds, you did it. So can you share with us what happened, what triggered that defining moment that gave you the strength to turn around your life?
Well, I think part of it is I didn't know it was trauma. I didn't know it was abnormal. That was my life. And so, you wake up every morning, you don't wake up thinking, oh my God, I'm living in trauma, I'm being abused, I'm being neglected. You don't think like that. You just get up and you say, how am I going to get through this day? Well, one day I got up and I didn't think I would get through the day. So I really had decided, okay, I'm out. I was really in the midst of postpartum depression, which is a serious mental health issue that many people don't talk about and so many people deal with. So I decided I was going to end my life. I had a 6-week-old baby, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And so my husband was an asthmatic, and he had a lot of medications. And one was phenobarbital, which can be very deadly. And I just took all of his meds. And as I was losing consciousness in my kitchen and I'm sliding to the floor, I saw this incredibly beautiful vision, I guess. On your way out of life, you see visions. So I saw this beautiful vision of this incredibly beautiful woman that I now know wasn't just an angel, but the presence of the Divine Mother. And she said to me, do you want to die or do you want to stop hurting? Well, only a divine mother or angel would ask the question like that, right? And I said, I want to stop hurting. I didn't want to die. I wanted to stop hurting. And she said she would show me how. So I didn't die, obviously. And I spent 6 weeks in a mental institution. And it was the most glorious time of my life, believe it or not. Um, I stopped taking the meds probably about 2 weeks in, and I really spent that time reflecting and journaling and praying and remembering and clearing and healing. And I was 21, 22 years old, and my life has never been the same.
Was it was it that appearance from the Divine Mother? Was it the therapy maybe that they gave you during that time? What was it that, suddenly opened you up to journaling and thinking and, just approaching this from a completely different way?
Being willing to tell the truth, being willing to tell my truth to myself, being willing to recognize the truth and not make up stories and excuses about it, being able to look at what I had created and what I had voluntarily participated in that took my life down the toilet, being able to acknowledge my thoughts and my feelings without anyone's permission. It was really a journey inward. And I recognized that the meds that they were giving me, I couldn't do it with the meds. I needed them initially because if you try to take your own life and you succeed, the first thing you experience is embarrassment. Like, damn, I can't even die. I was embarrassed.
Oops. Yeah.
Gosh, how could I mess this up? So you're embarrassed and then ashamed and then guilty. I had 3 kids. I don't have the right to take my life. And so I stopped taking the meds. Some people need them to get through that time. And I think that if it's helping you, if it's calming you down, if you're not ruminating in your mind, but I think it was the question that she asked me. Do you want to die or do you want to stop hurting? And I want to stop hurting. So the first truth I had to tell was, why am I hurting? And really look at that. Why am I hurting? And I had 6 weeks to do it.
And how old were you at this time? How old were you?
I was 22. I had my last child when I was 21. And she was born in August. I turned 22 in September.
That's pretty profound for a 22-year-old.
Yeah, it is.
Realize that they need to really look within. And
well, I was kind of guided. I didn't say, oh, let me look within. I knew about journaling. I knew about that because I've written all my life. I've always journaled. They didn't call it journaling back then. They called it keeping a diary.
Yeah.
Nobody knew it was therapeutic, So it was really, I was guided. One of the things that I've discovered, and even in my work with people, sometimes when you're having a mental health crisis or a mental health issue, you're closer to your authentic self than when you're walking around in your Gucci, eating pizza on the corner. Sometimes that vulnerability of just not being in control of every thought takes you to a level of authenticity that will really benefit you if you can stay with it, if you can hang in there with it.
You're alone with yourself, aren't you?
Huh?
You're alone with yourself at that point. Yeah.
And if you like yourself, you could have a good time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What happens a lot, though, I think, is when we hit that place or when there's a disruption in the psyche and the consciousness, that instead of looking in, we look out and we look at what people did or what happened or what didn't happen, or we start questioning why is not going to turn out well for you, because every why leads to another why. And
exactly.
Then you start ruminating. You ruminate on it.
Yeah. And things happen to you,
Yes.
for a reason.
Yeah.
And it seems to me as though that you saw that and you learned the lesson from it, and look where you are today. It's
Well,
incredible.
not initially. What I think I call it a purge. What the purging did for me was just get me clear about what I didn't want, what I didn't want, and most of all, how I was participating in my own suffering.
Yeah.
I just got clear about that. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And how am I feeling when I'm doing it?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have some like deep spiritual insight. Oh, I'm a divine child of God. No. I really just got clear about what I was feeling, how I was living, and what I wanted.
That experience with the mother, divine mother,
Yeah.
was that a new experience for you? I mean, was that the first time that you really encountered a higher power that you could believe in?
No, I had encountered it very often as a child. But I grew up in a traditionally religious home. My grandmother who raised me was a Native American passing as a Black woman. She was passing as a Black woman because it was easier to be Black than it was to be Native American. And one of the ways that she passed was, incorporating herself into the church, the Black church. So I was told as a child, when I would say, "Oh, I saw the lady," and the lady said this. So I saw, "What lady? What are you talking about?" And she would tell me things about the other people. So when I would tell them what she told me, which was their truth, they considered that to be evil. And I was beaten and punished. And after a while, I just shut it down. I don't know how. I just like, okay, this is not turning out well for me. Let me leave that lady alone.
But did you know that she was
No, I didn't know who it
a
was.
higher being? You didn't know who it was?
Not as a child,
No.
We have imaginary friends. She was just a lady that used to tell me people's business. Tell me people.
What point did you actually think then that this was source? This was
God. Yeah.
Probably after that experience, because I've always been deeply intuitive, but I would hear as opposed to see. I'm clairaudient. I always heard rather than see. So I think after that experience and being still, stillness is such a powerful medication for mental health illness,
Yes.
mental health crisis, mental health issues, stillness and silence, which is probably the two hardest things for us to do when we're in crisis. After that crisis, I kind of realized it was what it was. And then just another series of things that took me into a deeper level of spirituality beyond the traditional religious form. I discovered who she was.
Wow.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. But again, I think many of us who have faced mental health crisis or challenge, I'm not talking about deeply rooted psychological imbalances, multiple personality, schizophrenia. I'm talking about depression, anxiety, panic. Most of us, in those cases, there's something inside that's trying to get our attention.
Yeah.
But because we're not taught, where are we taught, Rebecca? Where are we taught, Sandie? Where are we taught how to go within? We're taught even in the church to go out, reach out, get the saints, get the Pope, get the preacher, get the whoever. We're not taught to go in.
Right.
So when that inside thing is trying to get out and it's stirring up in our minds, we think something's wrong with us.
And I believe that leads to addiction.
Oh yeah.
And
Cut the voice.
And I'm curious, do you feel it all stems from trauma?
Most of it, I think stems from trauma. Everybody, I believe, I believe, and if you do any work in spiritual psychology, most of us have a traumatic break from our authentic self, our soul, if you will.
Yeah.
We have a break, and it usually occurs sometime between conception and the age of 5. Because all the psychologists will tell you by 5, your template is set. Spend the rest of your life acting out that template that was put in place from conception to age 5. So most of us have a break. Something happens, some trauma. It doesn't have to be deadly rape, violence, fire, gunshot, murder. It could just be you didn't get the cookies you wanted, and you made up that you're hated. Nobody loves you. You're not good enough. You're unworthy of a cookie, and then you ruminate on that, and it grows. So when you miss the bus, I'm unworthy of a bus ride. And so the trauma, the initial trauma will attract evidence and attract energy from what we continue to experience. And so your trauma is at the root of most mental health crises. And where are we taught how to process trauma? Because trauma isn't what happened.
Right.
Trauma is your response to what happened.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree with you. And taking responsibility for it, not the trauma, but taking responsibility for your life at that point. And then from there, not blaming others for what happened. But again, that's where, to me, the word responsibility is like, okay, I need to take care of myself. I'm not going to be a victim here. I'm going to see how I can learn from what has happened to me in order to support and help others. That's just how I feel about it.
But the challenge is the trauma happens between birth and 5. And we get that idea, or that we come up with that belief or that scenario, that story. Most of us are SOS, stuck on story, which leaves us stuck on stupid. And I don't mean stupid in a derogatory way. I mean stupid, ignorant, unaware of the truth behind the experience, the meaning behind the experience. So because it happened when we're 5, was 4 or 3, in my case, my mother was an alcoholic. I'm talking a fall down pissy drunk. And all while I was gestating in her womb, I was marinating in alcohol and guilt. And whatever else. And I never understood, why wasn't I born with fetal alcohol syndrome? Why? I wasn't, that I'm aware of. Now I got some other issues, but that's not one of them. But I could never understand why. If my mother drank the way she did. Well, through deep levels of spiritual work, what I understood was that I separated from my mother in the womb. I literally, in my consciousness, separated from her, separated from identifying somehow in my soul. I guess that was my purpose. I wasn't born with fetal alcohol syndrome. And since my mother died when I was 2, I also wasn't raised by an alcoholic. Now, like I said, that led to a whole other load of issues. Here I am, a child. I never knew who my mother was because nobody bothered to tell me she was dead. I grew up thinking one woman was my mother who wasn't. When I found out she wasn't, I was 30. Oh my God. So it led to a lot of other issues, but I didn't have fetal alcohol syndrome because that wasn't my soul's agenda.
All right.
That's the key.
Yep.
A lot of the crisis, the challenges, the issues, the experiences that we have in life are a function of our soul's learning curriculum, what we've come here to learn.
Yes.
But since nobody talks to you about that, you just think this is the most horrible thing. Your husband ran off with your girlfriend, your best friend, and you just think, that's it, my life is over, as opposed to looking at it as, how does this grow me? How does this stretch me? What am I learning?
Yeah.
And do you believe in soul contracts?
Absolutely.
Part of the soul contract. Yes.
Yeah. And I learned that with my daughter, who was never drank, never smoked, She was a vegetarian who contracted colon cancer, a general, what do they call it? When the disease runs through the family, what's that called? Hereditary.
Hereditary.
Contracted a hereditary form of colon cancer that nobody had. I didn't have it. Her father didn't have it. It wasn't in my side. It wasn't in her side. How did she get this at 30 years old and die from it at 31? But that was her soul's contract. That's what she did what she came here to do. I had
Did
to learn.
you realize that at the point when she passed over? That
Oh no, It took me.
Yeah, when did you come to that realization? And
reading her journals after she passed. It became very, very clear to me. Oh my God. Okay, this is it. She was a short timer.
she was what?
A short timer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a short timer. She fulfilled her contract, and her deepest, most earnest prayer that she wrote over and over and over in her journal was, God, I want to be closer to you so that you can use me in a bigger way.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, who knew? This is a kid that started studying aromatherapy at 16 on the big old Mac computer with the big disc. She found some woman in France and was studying aromatherapy at 16.
Wow.
This is a woman who went to seminary to become a minister when she was 18. This is a woman who didn't have any, she never had an upset with anybody. Oh, not falling apart here.
She sounds like a very evolved soul.
Yes, she was. And she came to do her work, and she did it. I think she came to raise me.
I get that.
Yeah.
Learn from our children, that's for sure. I do.
Yeah.
And I think that also, if we have any doubts about soul contracts, it's at moments like that, those kinds of discoveries that we see. Yeah.
And again, when we're going through mental health crisis or depression, anxiety, panic, those things that come forward for us, very often it is the soul trying to negotiate the contract. Okay, you got to learn this. You got to go through this. You got to get this. But if we go into shame about it or fear about it, if we don't talk about it, and in our society, I don't know how it is in the UK, but I know in the Black community, you don't talk about your personal business. You don't tell people how you feel. Nobody don't care about how you feel. Get up and go to work. Shut your mouth. So it's what a glorious time we're in. Even that we could have a podcast about mental health. What?
Yeah.
Because it's just health.
Yes.
If your thinking isn't healthy, you won't be healthy. If you're not feeling healthy, you won't be healthy. Mental health is simply health for the mind. We wouldn't treat our heart or our bladder or our kidneys the way we neglect and ignore our minds. Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. And it's, one of the, talk about contracts and the positive side of experiences. One of the positives of COVID is that everybody's talking about mental health.
Yes. Yeah. Because many people fell off the mental health wheel to having to be home by themselves or not being able to be out and be busy. And you had to look at yourself and be with yourself and really understand. And a lot of people are having mental health issues as a result of simply being with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Absolutely. And people are having a whole new understanding and more compassion for people, for other people who have had mental health issues.
Yeah.
When you came back from being in the mental health facility and in the nut house. Okay, in the nut house. Did you
say that now?
Did you find that there were people in your life that actually didn't welcome this change in you?
No. They thought I was crazy because the shift for me turned up as there were things that my boundaries were different. There were just things that I was no longer willing to accommodate. My husband couldn't just walk up to me and slap me in my face or punch me in my eye. I wasn't going for that no more. Now he got a pan full of hot grease on him And, and I'm not, and I just, the shifts that happened, but it wasn't welcomed and it wasn't easy. And I didn't have a lot of support because people become accustomed to who we are and they accommodate it and they use it to their benefit also.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Themselves wherever they are in your life. So when you change, it's going to impact your entire ecology. And one of the things I'll never forget that happened for me was, just one night I decided I'm going to go to college. I'm going to school. And my family was like, what is wrong with you? You can't go to school. You got 3 kids and blah, 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 blah. It was not welcomed at all. So back then is when I learned the importance and the value of a daily spiritual practice. Because since the people in my life weren't supporting me and helping me, I had to stay in touch with that lady that I saw on the way out of here. Hello, where are you, lady? And that's really how I discovered what it was and who it was. I've never seen her again, but I've heard her.
You have a lot of strength and courage.
Yeah. And it takes a lot.
We all do. I think it's a mistake.
I agree, but I just wanted to validate that.
Okay, thank you. I accept. But I want us. We all do, and I know you know that.
Yeah.
The thing is, this society will make it. Oh, she's better, or she's different. No, the same creator, source, God that kept me in alignment, brought me back into alignment with what my soul's contract was, what I came here to learn, is the same one that will touch everybody.
Yes.
Even those that have severe mental health issues. There was a psychologist in Hawaii. He worked with the criminally insane. I cannot remember his name. That's because I'm old as hell, but I can't remember his name. And that's where the Hoponopono process came from.
Yeah.
He would sit and listen to his patients just ramble about the most god-awful craziness and insanity, killing people, eating their eyes or whatever. And he said 4 lines as he's listening. I love you. I am so, so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And that's called the Hoponopono process.
Yeah.
And he watched people's lives change simply by sending them loving light. And he didn't do it out loud. He did it in his mind. That's how powerful we are. So if you're powerful enough to hold a thought and project it outward to save somebody else's mind, why can't you use those same words to save your own mind?
Absolutely.
Very well said.
Yeah, very well said. We're going to take a short break now. You're listening to Cracked, the podcast, and today we're talking about how to rise up from rock bottom, heal the hard stuff, and fix our lives with celebrated New Thought spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and executive producer and host of the award-winning TV show, Iyanla, Fix My Life. And we'll be back with more practical tools, insights, and wisdom from Iyanla Vanzant after this break.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from New Thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So, if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Worried about your friend but don't know how to reach out?
You could say how are you or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could chat with them in VR. It's so good. If you think you should check in, yeah, you should.
Whatever gets you talking. Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Whatever gets you talking. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Welcome back. My next question for you is, how can we learn to identify and neutralize the feelings that we fuel the negative ego and keep us stuck in a vicious cycle of people feeling victimized by life and other people?
Ooh. Again, Sandie and Rebecca, the greatest medicine that I've ever taken in my life was truth. There's a saying, it's actually a scripture, but the truth will set you free. Telling the truth to yourself first, and then being willing and having the courage to tell other people the truth about who you are, about what you need, what you want, what you're feeling, the truth. Because one of the reasons we feel victimized by other people and by our experiences is we don't tell the truth.
Yeah.
We do things we don't want to do. We commit to things that we don't want to commit to. We're around people that we don't even like, acting like we like them. We don't discuss the little slights that people do, as opposed to creating boundaries and speaking our heart and our mind, because we're so worried about hurting people or upsetting them or them getting angry at us or whatever is the SOS that we tell ourselves. We're stuck on story. So we don't tell the truth. And as long as we don't tell the truth, we're going to be a victim of the lie that we tell, the lie that we portray, the lie that we promote. And that's your greatest enemy, is not telling the truth. So
yeah. For me, the telling the truth is freedom.
Yeah.
Total freedom. That's it for me.
Apart from anything else, if you're going to tell a lie, you've got to have a really good memory.
Yeah, right. You have to. And when you get to a certain age, I know you youngins don't understand. But
I don't know. Thank you for that. But I bet
when you get to a certain age, you're like, you can't even find your glasses. So it's hard to keep up with a lie.
I lost my phone yesterday and I couldn't find it. And I placed it somewhere. I went, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't remember that. So I get it.
Well, I put mine in the refrigerator and it was ringing. I couldn't find it. I was like, where is the phone? It's in the refrigerator. Okay. So there you go.
So, a lot of people say, I do want to change. I do want my life to be different, but it's so hard to change. And you've actually written books, many, many, many books to help people understand how to. You wrote one called Get Over It, Thought Therapy for Healing the Hard Stuff, in which you say that we've become disconnected from our personal power, the intuitive light created by our autonomous thoughts. Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, we're so externally driven. What we can see, what we can hear, what we can taste, what we can touch, what we can get, and holding that face. We were talking earlier about trauma. If we think of it this way, there's a part of us, a sacred, divine, powerful part that's connected to all of the power in the universe, in life, whether you call that God or spirit or whatever you call it. And it's in there. But what happens is we have a trauma or we have an experience that takes us out of that awareness. Babies are in it all the time. Babies will poop and pee and puke and fall, and they don't have all of these preconceived notions because they're just not aware of the external validation that's required. They're bug, yeah, let me eat it. If you watch the children, they're so wonderful, and we condition them out of it, or they have that trauma. And their response to the trauma, oh, this is bad, this is wrong, this is not good. And then they don't want anybody to know they've had the trauma because they don't want people to think certain things about them, or they think if people know certain things will happen, or they think it's their fault or whatever. So they have a response to the trauma, and then they develop a personality that they show the world to cover the trauma. So these two things are like knots that cover our authentic self. So what I talk about in Get Over It is stop telling that story, because it's not happening right now. Nobody is raping you right now. Nobody's beating you right now. You're not hungry right now. You're not homeless right now. And even if you are, if you're hungry, if you're homeless, if you've just been beaten, could you run away? That's a good thing. Focus on running away. Can you breathe? Can you poop? Can you pee? Is there something, stop focusing on the trauma or the experience. Stop focusing on things that are not true about you. And I said, I was raped as a young girl, as 9 years old. I didn't know it was rape. I didn't know I had been raped. I didn't know what that was. All I knew was what happened. I didn't like it, and it was not going to happen again. I didn't ruminate about my virginity and my innocence and I'm like, that's not happening to me again. Okay. And so I told the adult female in my life, who was my aunt. She confronted my uncle, and he said, she's lying. That didn't happen. She's lying. And my aunt never said another word about it. But what she did was, anytime she was leaving the house, she would never leave me home alone with him. So I had to go where she was going, or go with my older sister or my older brother, who hated having to drag me along, and or my aunt, who would take me places, and I'd sit there for hours waiting for her to play bingo or do whatever she was doing. So I became the problem because I had been raped. And I didn't know that I had been raped. I just know nobody wanted me. I was a problem. People didn't want to be around me. And that created more problem for me than the rape, because I didn't even know what the rape was. Yeah. So
No, sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, my point is, look at how the story you're telling yourself about what it is that happened. Because like I said, the rape was the trauma, but since nobody had ever talked to me about sex or whatever, it happened with somebody that I knew, somebody that I had to continue to live with every day and act like nothing had happened. Okay. That was traumatizing. And the story that I told myself about it was, I have to be nice to people who treat me bad. That story was more damaging than the rape.
Yeah.
And then nobody wants me. I'm a problem. I'm a burden. Everybody rejects me. That was more traumatic than the rape. So in order to get over something, I want to encourage and invite us to look at the story we're telling ourselves about ourselves in response to what we experience. Mm-hmm. That will create more mental health issues than anything else. Yeah. What's the story?
Yeah.
And how does it feel? How does that story make you feel? Because you can flip that story any moment. You can. You really can.
Yeah.
That leads me into the question about boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries is a word we talk about a lot, obviously. I'm curious to know what your definition of boundary is and how you apply it in your life. I'm curious.
For me, boundaries are the way I protect the things that I value. That's what a boundary is. I value my children. I value my body. I value my home. So a boundary is the way I protect the things that I value and the standards that I set to keep myself safe. The standards that I set. When I think about spending 9 years in an abusively violent marriage, it's because I didn't have boundaries. I didn't value my own safety. I didn't value my own body. I didn't value my peace of mind. I didn't value myself. So it was okay for someone to treat me like that. Plus, I grew up in a home where there was domestic violence, so it was familiar. And it wasn't until I began to value myself and protect that that the violence stopped. It didn't stop. I left. So boundaries are the way that I protect the things that I value and the standards that I set to keep myself safe. And most of us, 90% of the challenges that we have in our life and in our relationships are because we don't have clear boundaries.
Yeah. And that's because we don't often really we're not clear about our values.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting point, that you said, that it's about values.
Yeah.
And most of us don't even know what our values are.
That's right. And the way to get to what you value, a very simple way, we don't want to make it mystical and you don't need 50 crystals and a guru. What really matters to me?
Yeah.
It's that simple. What really matters to me? One of the reasons I left my television show was because I got clear, or I shifted and came to understand what really matters to me is freedom. I want to be free to come, to go, to do. I want to be free. I didn't want to have to get up every morning at 7:00 and sit in the makeup chair for hours. I don't want to have to say this word or don't say that word or do this. I want to be free. And then once I got clear, I value my freedom. I said, okay, so if I value my freedom, I can't keep doing this television show where I'm under the gun, under a timeline, under, time constraints, where I got to be someplace. It's no, out.
Yeah.
Then the boundary that I created was anything that impinges or infringes upon my sense of freedom. At 70, I want to come and go like I want to. I just don't want that. And I was willing to let go of everything that wasn't in alignment with what I really wanted. And that's how you set the boundary. So that's where we get into trouble, because we're not willing to let go of, to stop doing, to ask for, to call in what it is that we really, really want. So we don't have boundaries.
It's interesting how this is not taught in schools. I mean, I know children, young, teenagers who have got involved with vaping, and they know it's wrong, and they're athletes, and they know that it's going to damage their body, but they say, they can't stop doing it because all their friends are doing it. But what you've said there, values, there's the conversation to have with them.
Yes.
What do you value the most?
Yes. Yeah. And what really matters to you?
Yeah.
Does being accepted by your friends matter to you more than mastering your craft? Yeah. And teenagers, they'll have to make it up. But if we started teaching children at the age of 7, 8, 9, that your feelings matter, what you want matters, and to teach them how to navigate patience and cooperation and commitment and focus. We teach the words, but we don't teach our children how to do it. So then we become unfocused, uncommitted adults who are jumping around like grasshoppers, trying to figure out how to satisfy the physical senses, what I can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and not the inner sensibilities.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always say to my students is, stop trying to intellectualize the spirit and spiritualize your intellect. If you would spiritualize your intellect, you'd understand that what's going on in you is more important than what's going on around you. And that too will bring you to a place of peace and address many of the mental health crises that we have. Most of us have mental health crisis because we're seeking external validation. And the people that we're seeking it from, they're crazy as we are.
Well, talking about peace, that leads me to my next question. As you say, peace is the prescription for any mental health issue. Can
Yes.
you expand on that?
You know, I have a line of body products called Masterpiece that my daughter started. And I just continued the line. And one of the things Jamia really focused on was peace. She said, if you have peace of mind, you have everything. And one of the reasons we don't have peace is because we have so much discordant energy around us, on us, in us. We create it, we see it. So for me, mastering peace has become a way of life. What do I need to do to have peace? If nothing in my life was ever to change, if, you know, my daughter's still dead, my husband still beat me, my boobs still fell down, I still got to worry about how to pay the mortgage, what do I need to do to have peace in the middle of all of that? As opposed to trying to make that stuff change, I can't undead my daughter. I can't be unbeaten. I can't unsee what I've seen, unheard what I've heard. What do I need to do to have peace in the midst of everything that's going on? What do I need to do? Do I need to sit in the tub for 20 minutes? Do I need to breathe? Do I need to read something inspirational? Do I need to journal? Do I need to eat some coffee ice cream? What do I need to do to have peace? Let me do that and let me get to peace and see how long that lasts. And once you understand what brings you peace and what peace feels like, anything that disrupts your peace, you'll create a boundary to keep it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I mean, you have, you know, your books are amazing and they're full of practical, you know, tools and tips and techniques and ways for us to shift our thinking. You offer, you talk about energy clearing tools, and this is something that I think ties in with peace.
Oh, yes.
And are really important. Can you give us some examples, you know, some takeaways, energy clearing tools that people can take and use today?
Well, you know, there are tools and there's tools, there's technology, and there's well, let me say tools and technology. The first and the greatest peace producing tool that you have is your breath. We don't breathe. We, you know, something happened, but learning how to breathe in your body, breathe into your chest. You can breathe into, I cut my finger last night. I was quilting and sliced the little piece off the side of my finger. And of course the blood was everywhere. And so before I panicked, I took a breath and I spoke to my finger. Peace, be still, be still. You will stop bleeding. Now, of course, I held it and I wrapped it and whatever, but learning how to breathe as opposed to running, that is the greatest, and it's free. We do it all the time. We just don't do it consciously. So learning how to breathe. The other thing that is, for me, a powerful tool is stillness. Sandie, 5 minutes of no phone, no TV, no nothing, 5 minutes. Will we store hours and days and weeks of chaos in your life? Mm-hmm. Another tool that I use is tapping. I was trained as an emotional freedom technician, and it's tapping. There's a beautiful app that you can get called the Tapping Solution, and it'll take you through tapping for peace. Because what you're doing is you're touching on energy centers and nerve centers in your body using your own hands. You're tapping on, you're touching and stimulating. And while you tap, you talk your feelings out. It's called a script. And that brings you to a place of peace. If you want to look at a technology, sound. You know, there's a lot of information out now about solfeggio frequencies and binaural beats, tuning forks. There's a wonderful product that I use all of the time, made right in the UK, Orasoma. Orasoma technologies that you put on your body, in your field. So the sound, light, breath, and these are things that we can use, and they all come from nature. My masterpiece body products, keeping your body clean with herbs, with oils, with the things that'll clean your energy off, because it's a hectic time that we're living in. So just simple things. Music. What are you listening to? What are you listening to? Listen to a solfeggio frequency or a binaural beat. You go on YouTube and there's hundreds of them. Clean your house out, peaceful sleep, attract abundance. And it's just because the mind is going to respond to the energy of these natural frequencies. So there's tools, there's technologies, there's techniques, there's all kinds of things that we can use if we're just willing.
Yeah, we're talking about changing our focus and changing our frequency.
Yes, change your frequency. Everything is energy, and energy vibrates. The higher your vibration, the greater you'll be in tune and alignment, not only with your heart, but with the universe. And that's the greatest way to address whatever's going on in our mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you talk about just having 5 minutes just to be.
Yeah.
And I use that practice in the morning and in the evening, because it works.
Yeah.
It works for me. And
I try to do 108 conscious breaths 3 times a day. And a conscious breath is where I'm breathing into my lungs by expanding my belly, and I'm just allowing the exhale to fall. I do that 108 times in succession, 3 times a day.
Why 108?
Well, because in many traditions, that 108, the 1 and the 8 is 9, and it's a cycle of completion.
Yeah.
And then I follow that up with 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes of just stop silence.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't cost me a dime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel nature can bring us, so much peace too, just being in nature.
One of the things that I was taught many, many, many years ago, I didn't know anything about it. Again, raised in the traditional religious church, somebody gave me a piece of black obsidian, and I wore it in my bra because they say black obsidian absorbs negative energy. So I wore, crystals. That's another tool.
Yeah.
I put black obsidian in my bra, and that looked like I had 3 boobs, but did I care? I don't.
As long as you got peace. Yeah.
You were getting rid of that negative energy.
And it was coming out of me. It wasn't even coming from the world. It was my energy.
Yeah. We're almost out of time now. I think, one important question is, what's the most important thing that you've learned? Most important.
Well, 2 things. Let me just say, first of all, God is, by whatever name you call it, and God is. And then the second thing for me is peace, master peace. Yeah.
I think that's a lifelong task for many people, isn't it? It's such an important thing. If we've got that, we've got everything.
That's right. If you've got peace and you understand that God is, and you have a relationship with the God of your understanding, when I realize I don't have to do anything, Sandie, nothing. Here's what I need to do. I need to be black, and I need to die. Other than that, everything else is up for grabs, because I can't stop being black, and one day I'm gonna die. Those are the only 2 things I know for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything else. And if I just take the pressure off, I'll be okay. I don't have to get a degree and money and I do that because that's a part of life. But all I really have to do, all God has given me to do, is to be black and die.
Yeah.
Other than that.
And then you live your life.
Yes.
Like to live
your life. I get to have a blast.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Be who you are and live.
Yes.
Which is the other side of that, isn't it? Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Iyanla, it's never enough time. Never enough time. But it's been an absolute delight to hear your wisdom and have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. And
Oh,
thank you
thank
for
you for
doing
being-
this for the world. Continue talking about it. Let's get the stigma off, and let's let us know that the health of your mind is just as important as the health of any other organ in your body.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have
Really
a blessed and
appreciate it.
wonderful. Well, I would say Thanksgiving, but I won't. I'll say have a blessed and wonderful.
I will be with my American friends in spirit.
Okay.
That's
There you go. You'll be tasting that turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rebecca, is there any last thing you want to say?
Yeah. It's a little emotional, but this is our last podcast. And thank you for being the last person that we're having on our podcast. We're going out with a boom.
With
sure.
a bang, for sure.
Bang. I mean, a bang. But I do want to thank OMTimes and Sandie, my co-host. Just have thoroughly enjoyed being with you, Sandie. But most of all, I want to thank the listeners who have tuned in. And I really hope that they have been inspired and that we have given you hope. And you can take away golden nuggets through all these podcasts that we have had. And thank you so much for everything. And Sandie, thank you. You've just been an amazing co-host. I'm getting a little emotional, so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you to Rebecca and Iyanla. Thank you. And I want to let everybody know that Iyanla's book titles are far too numerous to mention, but every single one of them has something major to offer. And Peace from Broken Pieces, for me, oh my God, is the most heartrending and the most inspirational book I've ever read. And thank you for that, Iyanla. Thank you for sharing your truth. So that's it from us for this week. We'll be back. We won't be back next week, but we do want you to remember that there's a crack in everything, and it's where the light gets in. Rebecca, over to you.
And thank you so much. And mental health will always be in my heart, for sure. I have a passion for that. So that's it.